Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, a truly incredible week. We've got green across the board, the large caps leading the way, and the alts did wait a little bit before they followed Bitcoin higher. I'm going to talk about all that as well as bring you guys the global headlines tied into the crypto news and let you know what I see ahead. Now, this was a little bit ironic, I thought, that there was no I in responsibility on the newly printed Australia note. So we know that they're eyeing off the cash ban soon and all this sort of thing, but I thought you guys would enjoy that little typo. In terms of Big Brother arriving in Australia, it looks like we are trialing China's social credit system. So if you haven't heard of this, I'd encourage you to read up about it. I might do some episodes on this specifically in future, but pretty scary stuff. Australia is becoming a nanny state. In terms of China, we know that the foreigners are dumping those Chinese stocks at a record pace. So it's all about the tariffs and the trade war, and it's the central banks and those trade wars that have dominated the headlines for all markets this year, which we've been talking about a lot. Now, China pumped a lot of liquidity into their market. It pumps up stocks, and then foreigners take advantage of that and get out. I'm going to talk about how money flows around the world a lot in future episodes. So Trump's been talking a big game. He wants to protect US jobs and whatnot. Look, I'm not sure what side of politics you fall on, but either way, this is going to put up the price of Chinese goods and stoke that trade war, and markets didn't really like that this week. In terms of the pace of global markets, how they chugging along, one of the things I've been focused on is, smartphones, microchips, hard drives was another one, and all this stuff is in free fall. So that's a really good indicator of the modern economy and how it is slowing down. Another bill that's looking to be introduced in the US would ban billions of video game loot boxes and microtransactions. So it's absolutely crazy. I have got Gaming Week coming up this week on Nuggets News for you guys because I believe this industry is already booming, and in the blockchain space, it's going to go absolutely crazy in the coming years. And once again, we see the lawmakers getting in the way of progress. So super frustrating. I hope that doesn't happen. In terms of IPO, I spoke about how Uber was grossly overvalued and it is tanking. We know there's too much money out there. It's all looking to find a home. We know that Wall Street is not immune to the same emotions that drive ICO prices and the same sort of boom bust as they list. Now, 1.6 trillion in student debt. We've spoken about the different types of debt on the channel a lot, but this is a serious issue where people at that stage of their lives where they're trying to learn and set themselves up are having a lot of these suicidal thoughts. Now, one of the biggest causes of suicidal ideation is antidepressants, guys. And as a pharmacist, I'm really passionate about bringing you guys the news around this stuff. And 46% of Americans have now taken a drug in the past 30 days. So look, ideally, I think meditation, healthy diet, exercise, good relationships can all help with these sort of things. But unfortunately, it's becoming less common to live that sort of life in the Western culture. Okay, so the Fed, central banks, this has been a big focus for us on the channel since day one. And a lot of you guys have been down the same rabbit hole as me after the GFC. So this is the Fed's latest trick. They're trying to test the waters on how people are going to respond to these new things. And, Operation Twist was the name of one of the QEs because they didn't just want to call it QE again. So one of the next things it looks like they are going to try here, guys, is a rate peg instead of QE. So rather than saying, look, we're going to try and buy this amount of bonds every month and we're going to try and get interest rates to this target rate, they're just going to peg interest rates there. And no matter how many foreigners are dumping their bonds or how many are issued, the Fed is just going to be the market maker. They are just going to buy it at that determined rate. So again, there's no such thing as real markets price discovery. I've got an interview with Roger Montgomery about how frustrating it has been as a value investor as well lately. Now, in Australia here, we are debuting that blockchain infrastructure soon. So it's really exciting to see blockchain being used by a global stock exchange here in Australia. We know that this has been in the pipeline a little bit, but just giving a lot of people more justification that blockchain is a really good use for these sort of ledgers. Now, some more Australian news here that Bitcoin could spoil Australia's cash payment crackdown. So very soon you won't be able to pay for high cost items in Australia with cash. You guys know I've done that video about how I think they're going to move to ban cash and we are heading to negative interest rates. Now, other companies are going to push back on this. So we see ZebPay coming to Australia this week. Crypto got banned in India. But there's a lot of companies now, whether it's Arbra, all the Australian exchanges, there would be so much pressure from those businesses and from us as the wider community if there's a move to ban cash and to ban crypto as well, guys. So, speak up, spread this news around. It's very important stuff as I think this is coming. Speaking of Arbra, they did add in-app support for thousands of US banks. So one of the things that I have spoken about that's going to drive the next wave of adoption is how easy it is to on-ramp. So no more signing up and waiting to get KYC. There are a number of apps now that will just let you link your bank account or a credit card and you can have crypto in your hands as soon as you get that FOMO or excitement. I know a lot of you have probably been through that as well. So some more big news for Nexus here. This is a project which I'm very excited about. They've actually got a lot of competition now from some of the big listed companies breaking into this space in terms of cube satellites and launching these sort of networks and whatnot. So Nexus do have a lot of partners in that industry already. They're not a new player per se, but this Tritium, this 3D blockchain, they've laid out that roadmap for development. I know we've got a lot of Nexus fans. And again, I'd always love to see the little guy get there rather than just letting, Google, Tesla per se win this race. I'd love the guys that have been working hard behind the scenes for years to really win that battle. Now, Funfair is another one of my favorite projects. They continue to add more games. If you listen to that interview we did with Jez Sand, he spoke about onboarding users being one of their biggest headwinds. Now, funstats.xyz here shows you the number of users and sessions, and these metrics are all picking up. So Funfair have made a real effort to make the experience very easy, and I think this is a token that's going to get a lot of utility going forward. Now, a token that maybe hasn't had as much utility as we would have hoped has been Neo. Now, there is a new glimmer of hope as they've released that Neo 3.0 roadmap, but this is one that is certainly a long way behind where they would have liked to be. So preparing for the launch of a new blockchain, the same as Ethereum's launching that new chain around Q2 of 2020. Now, I wasn't sure how Neo would react just recently, and I don't want to talk about technical analysis just yet, but Neo certainly pumped like a lot of coins, and that just shows you that speculation still drives these markets, that China X factor. So Neo is still one that I own as one of my speculative alts for the time being. Now, the big news this week was obviously Binance getting hacked, and markets fell pretty hard. So they've done a further security update since we did that live video. I did a detailed video, and I found myself saying that it looks like we're going to get an oversold bounce on the 15-minute chart with traders stepping in. And that's something I didn't even realize at the time. I haven't said that since that bull market. So subconsciously, there's so much bullish market internals at the moment, and Binance hack was one of the big red flags that I thought could have pushed the market lower and ended this rally off the lows. But we'll talk about price action at the end of the episode. This really surprised people how strongly it bounced back. Now, one of the coins that Binance delisted was Modem, and they've actually partnered with Swiss Post, and this is one that I do own. Guys, it's heartbreaking when a coin gets delisted and drops 50%, but fundamentally nothing has changed. I see this as a really important project that's actually helping businesses in Europe in the real world comply with regulation. Now, Modem have got a lot on their roadmap for this year, so it's one that I'm continuing to be confident on. Don't worry too much about exchange delistings if the fundamentals are still strong. So Maker had a critical vulnerability in their voting contract. So if you hold Maker as an investor, there's nothing to worry about. If you have been using it to vote, you do have to remove those funds. And this was discovered by Coinbase because they're doing further audits before they want to list Maker and let people vote. So it's great to see big companies like Coinbase help the auditing process, but it just shows you how hard it is to make these smart contracts. The Maker team, one of the best teams out there, and we still have bugs. So again, we need these auditing projects. I think they're going to be very important going forward. Into the Ethereum news now, and Vitalik and Joe Lubin both dug into their pockets to donate 1,000 ETH to the Morlock DAO. Now, thanks to Bo, who showed me the meaning of this, and I'm really a bit astonished why they would call something Morlock, and I'll let you guys Google what that's all about, but I certainly don't like that name, but in terms of what they're doing, of funding Ethereum innovation and whatnot, I think that's really important and something that the ETH Foundation know that they needed to address. Celebrities. Now, these guys are going to be part of the next bull run. So when someone like William Shatner comes out and says, hey, I'm going to use Ethereum for proof of authority, for tracking and whatnot, just to authenticate digital items and so on. So he's using this for collectibles. We know that these use cases keep springing up, but it's more this celebrity narrative, and the people with large amounts of followers, us little YouTubers are maybe going to become less relevant for where people are going to get their news from when celebrities start talking about cryptocurrencies. So the Ethereum price did start off with a jump this week from the CFTC, hinting that futures may be approved. Now, there's a lot of if, buts, and maybes here, but we certainly think that ETH is going to be the next one that does get futures, and probably the second one to get an ETF after Bitcoin. It's only natural that we go down that market cap order, but this certainly got the market a little bit excited. Now, we do have some developers in our group as well, and it was great to hear them talk to me about this news, and they will be using this. So Microsoft are releasing that Ethereum app development kit for their cloud services. So more and more ways to build on top of that open source global infrastructure. Into the Bitcoin news now. So a lot of you will have heard of the Lightning Network, but you might not have heard of the Liquid Network. So this has always also been developed by Blockstream, and this is a second layer solution for exchanges and other businesses to send coins to each other. So it's freeing up that main network, because we know in the past a lot of the transaction has come from exchanges having to send crypto to each other and in and out of cold storage and so on. The next thing I want to talk about here is custody. So we know that the big boys, the big players are coming to this space, and I think that custody is going to be one of the biggest areas that grows. And the purists amongst us, we know that we'd rather hold our own keys and have our own wallets, but unfortunately for a lot of people, they are going to rely on custody and insurance. So the fact that BitGo are hiring from Wall Street and Forex traders just shows you that people are joining this industry and they know where the money is flowing. So the Bitfinex news weighed on the market last week, and apparently they have got $1 billion in private purchases already signed, sealed, and delivered for that IEO, the Leaf token, which is going to be very similar to the Binance token in that it gives you discounts on trading and whatnot. So this should give people a lot of confidence if they have raised $1 billion that is going to cover up for that other money that's unattainable for the time being, and it looks like the market is not worried about this at all if you look at the price action. Now, Facebook relaxed their crypto ad terms, and that's been pretty frustrating for a lot of crypto businesses. There was speculation early on that Facebook would launch their own coin. That turned out to be true. They are relaxing their own ads before the launch of their own stablecoin. So I guess they want people to realize that they're not banning crypto because crypto is bad, now that they are launching their own crypto. And I've got an interview coming up this week with a fantastic gentleman from the marketing loyalty points world who is talking about Facebook and the next wave of what he thinks is the best use case for blockchain. Now, the US senators pushed back this week and want more information on Facebook's coin, Project Libra, as you guys know it's called. So obviously Facebook have taken advantage of people's data and privacy and whatnot. So senators have now got Facebook, under their microscope. What are you guys doing with this cryptocurrency? How is it going to be used? What data are you taking off people and so on? And, it wouldn't surprise me if we've now got the banks and Visa and payment processors sort of getting in the ear of regulators and saying, hey, that's our space. Don't let Facebook play in there as well. So FinCEN cracking down on DApps, and unfortunately, they are leaning towards the fact that some of these DApps might actually fall under the money transmission regulations. Now, that's not a good thing. That would be a big setback for all DApps on all blockchains. let's see what comes of this. They have issued this new guidance. From what I've read, there's a lot of lawyers that are still saying that this is pretty unclear, but very frustrating when the US and the big boys continue to push back, and we know that innovation is moving to those other areas. We saw a few big names this week come out and bash Bitcoin just as it was having a great run. So Mario Draghi was asked about this and said that they're highly risky, they're not real money, they're a speculative asset. And I actually think by the end of this year or next year, central banks are going to have to address cryptocurrencies as legitimate competition if they want to continue to do money printing, low interest rates, and so on. Now, Brad Sherman was out again this week, US Congressman, talking about how he just wants an outright ban on all cryptocurrency because it's competition for the US dollar. And by having the world reserve currency, they have a lot of privileges. Now, we know they've abused those privileges. You guys remember that he was actually the recipient of a lot of donations from a company that was part of deceptive and illegal financial activity. So the pot calling the kettle black there. I'm not sure who elects these people. We just seem to have the weirdest ideologies in Congress, and particularly in Australian politics as well. But guys, I think hopefully there's a new wave of politicians that have grown up that are sick of all this stuff coming, but maybe that's a few years away, a bit wishful. Now, the big news this week was Fidelity getting into crypto trading, possibly within weeks. Now, a lot of people are excited. Household name. Is this going to mean a lot of people are going to get into crypto? I think it's going to be a little bit underwhelming at first, but this is all a move in the right direction. And I think it shows you that people are beginning to realize that Bitcoin is king, and it's those large cap mature assets, particularly Bitcoin, where money is going to flow first. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, should I buy more Bitcoin? And one of the things that, we've had a lot of people balance their portfolio with their self-managed super. So if you just want to put 1%, 5%, maybe 10% of your super into Bitcoin and just leave that for the next 10 or 20 years. New Brighton Capital are our partners. We've had nothing but good reports from them. They're one of the cheapest self-managed supers out there. So make sure you give those guys a call if you want to put a little bit of your super into crypto. Now, before we dive into the charts, I want to talk about how this played out, because this was something that we put up as a possibility, and I didn't think it was that likely because we know how many people were talking about 6,000 being overhead resistance. But when we actually looked at the shorts and the longs, it had all the ingredients, the perfect recipe for a surprise short squeeze through that level, as I posted here in Facebook at the beginning of the week. Now, dumb money tends to do the wrong thing at the exact wrong time. But having said that, I did not expect us to be as bullish as it played out. So I jumped on live for our Facebook members yesterday to talk about this short squeeze, and altcoins hadn't jumped at this stage. And I did share a post about how I think the large cap alts are going to benefit next. It's not just going to be that ICO, every altcoin is going to jump. And it was fantastic today to wake up and see that, Litecoin, Cardano, Amigo, IOTA, all the big caps that we really love jumping 10%, 20%, and so on. So look, if we look at this chart, we know that as soon as we got through that level, it's just been absolutely ballistic. Now let's just take a deep breath and say, what comes next? How has this happened? We know that we had our cycle bracket pushing up, and that is now pushing down into the 13th of May. So we may get one more leg higher here. On US, when they have their Sunday trading session in the coming hours, we could still get another gasp higher, maybe into the 8,000s. However, at that stage, we're severely overbought on the daily chart. If we close this weekly candle really strongly, we are going to be overbought on the weekly as well. And that hasn't happened since way back here in the bull market. So look, we have to be conscious of where we are, bigger picture. I do believe there is a pullback coming. It's very frustrating if you sold here or you're waiting for this pullback here, as a lot of people were. But guys, I think this is a good example of, if you are not a trader, the majority of people should just be investors primarily. And if you've been dollar cost averaging and buying your crypto and you've got plenty of exposure, you're benefiting whenever crypto goes up in price. So when people tell me that they sold here and they're planning on buying it back here, you have to think long term. if Bitcoin is going to where we hope it's going to go, do you really want to risk missing these huge jumps to get in and out of what might be a window of only a couple of days opportunity? So everyone's euphoric at the moment. It's been fantastic to watch. I think that's really putting the doubters to rest. And if we look at the volume coming in here, this isn't just declining volume that's going to just have a complete big breakdown here. The bulls have been showing up relentlessly, buying every dip. And you have to ask yourself, well, who's really selling? If you pick the bottom, if you've been trading well, yes, there's always going to be people that take profits, but I think that fear of the market going to 1,000 is gone. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have this pullback in the coming weeks, but at the moment, if you consider all the news that's happened, the price action we've seen, I think the odds are greatly in favor of 3,200 being the bottom. But let me know what you guys think below. Finally, I just want to mention how to do courses. A lot of people are still flying blind, and it becomes obvious on weekends like this when everyone's just going haywire who's got a plan and who doesn't. Now, Trader Cobb is a friend of our channel. He's got some big discounts for you guys at the moment. I've got those discount codes in the description below, and for our members, we've got another discount code for you guys. He's also throwing in a couple of free months in his trading area, so a couple $100 of value there, guys. We've had plenty of positive feedback about these courses, so if you feel like you need to do this and get some value out of it all, have a bit of a plan before the next bull market is well and truly in swing. Make sure to support Trader Cobb. If you've enjoyed this episode, guys, smash those likes, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.